Hello, and welcome to the Brooklyn Rail's 151st New Social Environment. I'm Emily, and I have the pleasure and privilege of being your MC today for a radical poetry reading curated by Anselm Berrigan and Mónica della Torre. Every Wednesday leading up to the election, a guest curator will invite a number of poets who they admire to the NSE to read political poetry. And today we're also thrilled to have the poets Eleni Sikelianos, Christopher Pérez, Gabriela Jauregui, Uche Nduka, and Asiya Wadud here with us today. This October marks the Rail's 20th anniversary, and we are committed to remaining independent, free, and accessible to all. And as many of you know, today we have the special treat of our curators being the Rail's very first poetry editor, Mónica, and our current poetry editor, Anselm. The Brooklyn Rail acknowledges that we are on the unceded territory of the Lenni Lenape, Canarsie, Shinnecock, and Munsee peoples. We acknowledge the many indigenous nations with ties to this land, and we recognize that the Lenape still call Mannahatta home. Finally, the Brooklyn Rail stands in solidarity with the uprising unfolding across the country following the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, Nina Pop, David McAdie, James Scurlock, Jamel Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, Rhea Milton, Dominique Remy Fells, and Toyin Salau, and in response to generations of structural violence against Black communities. Black Lives Matter, and we will continue to support ongoing action in the struggle for racial justice. Before I introduce our curators, we'd like to begin with a brief moment of silence. Thank you. And to introduce today's curators, as I said before, Anselm Berrigan is the current poetry editor of the Rail, and Mónica della Torre was the first ever poetry editor of the Rail. I think they will introduce each other in slightly more detail, but Anselm and Mónica, take it away. Oh.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. It really is delightful to be here. I will begin just by introducing our first reader, Eleni Sikelianos. And before I do that, I want to thank the Brooklyn Rail for hosting these readings and for inviting us to curate this particular reading, and for everything you're doing, for keeping it real, and for the enormous amount of labor that is going into doing something positive out of this new social environment we find ourselves in. So today, the first reader is Eleni Sikelianos, who's the author of 9 books of poetry, most recently What I Knew, published by Nightboat in 2019, and 2 hybrid memoirs, The Book of John and New Animal Machine. Her writings have been widely anthologized and translated, and she has been the happy recipient of many awards for her work, including 2 National Endowment for the Arts and the National Poetry Series. She has taught in public schools, homeless shelters, and prisons. She has collaborated with musicians, filmmakers, and visual artists. And as a translator, she has worked on texts by Jacques Roubaud and Mohamed Lefta, among others. Since 1998, she has been on guest faculty for the Naropa Summer Writing Program, and she now teaches at Brown University. Eleni is also a Gemini, and she shares a birthday with the poets Nicky Giovanni, St. John Peirce, and none other than Walt Whitman. And as a true Gemini, she is affectionate, gentle, curious, adaptable, expressive, quick-witted, and many other things that you will notice yourselves when you read. Her horoscope today dictates, recommends that she gets some exercise, moves around to get endorphins going. And I thought, how lovely is that? Because that is exactly what's about to happen to us. Our endorphins are about to start firing away. So on that note, take it away, Eleni, and welcome to the reading.
Great, thank you so much, beloved Mónica. Thank you all, so wonderful to see all your faces. Thank you, Anselm and Mónica, for having us. Thank you to the Brooklyn Rail and fans of all of you. Hi, Eleanor Nowen. Hi. And happy birthday publicly to Uche. So Mónica and I are actually, before I read poems of my own, Mónica and I are going to start by reading, curiously enough, we were texting each other and realized we were both thinking of reading the very same Cesar Vallejo poem today. So we're going to read it together. It takes a little bit of time, not too bad. And this is from his Human Poems. I'm going to be reading Clayton Eshelman's translation, and Monica's going to be reading in Spanish. We'll just switch off a bit. This poem is called The 9 Monsters. It's, I think we could imagine any 9 current monsters for the poem. There are plenty to plug in there. So, ready, Mónica?
Ready.
Okay. The 9 Monsters.
Los 9 monstruos.
And unfortunately, pain grows in the world all the time, grows 30 minutes a second, step by step. And the nature of the pain is twice the pain. And the condition of the martyrdom, carnivorous, voracious, is twice the pain. And the function of the purest grass, twice the pain. And the good of being, our dolor, doubled.
Y desgraciadamente el dolor crece en el mundo a cada rato. Crece a 30 minutos por segundo, paso a paso. Y la naturaleza del dolor es el dolor 2 veces. Y la condición del martirio, carnívora, voraz, es el dolor 2 veces. Y la función de la hierba purísima, el dolor 2 veces. Y el bien de ser, dolernos doblemente.
Never human men, human women, human beings was there so much pain in the chest, in the lapel, in the wallet, in the glass, in the butcher's shop, in arithmetic. Never so much painful affection. Never did the distance charge so close. Never did the fire ever play better its role of dead cold. Never, Mr. Minister of Health, was health more mortal. Did the migraine extract so much forehead from the forehead? Did the cabinet have in its drawer pain, the heart in its drawer pain, the lizard in its drawer pain?
Jamás, hombres humanos, hubo tanto dolor en el pecho, en la solapa, en la cartera, en el vaso, en la carnicería, en la aritmética. Jamás tanto cariño doloroso, jamás tanta cerca arremetió a lo lejos. Jamás el fuego nunca jugó mejor su rol de frío muerto. Jamás, señor ministro de Salud, fue la salud más mortal. Y la migraña extrajo tanta frente de la frente, y el mueble tuvo en su cajón dolor. El corazón en su cajón, dolor. La lagartija en su cajón, dolor.
Misfortune grows, brother men, sister women, human beings, faster than the machine at 10 machines, and grows with Rousseau's livestock, with our beards. Evil grows for reasons we know not, and is a flood with its own liquids, its own mud, and its own solid cloud. Suffering inverts positions. It acts in that the aqueous humor is vertical to the pavement. The eye is seen, and this ear heard, and this ear sounds 9 strokes at the hour of lightning, and 9 guffaws at the hour of wheat, and 9 female sounds at the hour of weeping, and 9 canticles at the hour of hunger, and 9 thunderclaps, and 9 lashes, minus a scream.
Crece la desdicha, hermanos hombres, más pronto que la máquina. Más pronto que la máquina, a 10 máquinas, y crece con la res de Rousseau, con nuestras barbas, crece el mal por razones que ignoramos, y es una inundación con propios líquidos, con propio barro y propia nube sólida. Invierte el sufrimiento posiciones, da función en que el humor acuoso es vertical al pavimento. El ojo es visto y esta oreja oída, y esta oreja de 9 campanadas a la hora del rayo, y 9 carcajadas a la hora del trigo, y 9 sones hembras a la hora del llanto, y 9 cánticos a la hora del hambre, y 9 truenos y 9 látigos menos un grito.
The pain grabs us, brother men, sister women, human beings, from behind, in profile, and drives us wild in the movies, nails us to the gramophones, unnails us in bed, falls perpendicularly onto our tickets, our letters, and it is very serious to suffer. One might pray. For as a result of the pain, there are some who are born, others who grow, others die, and others who are born and do not die, others who die without having been born, and others who neither are born nor die, the majority.
El dolor nos agarra, hermanos hombres, por detrás, de perfil, y nos aloca en los cinemas, nos clava en los gramófonos, nos desclava en los lechos, cae perpendicularmente a nuestros boletos, a nuestras cartas, y es muy grave sufrir. ¿Puede uno orar? Pues de resultas del dolor hay algunos que nacen, otros crecen, otros mueren, y otros que nacen y no mueren, otros que sin haber nacido mueren, y otros que no nacen ni mueren, son los más. Y también de resultas del sufrimiento estoy triste hasta la cabeza, y más triste hasta el tobillo, de ver el pan crucificado al nabo, ensangrentado, llorando a la cebolla, al cereal en general, harina, a la sal hecha polvo, al agua, huyendo, al vino, un eche homo tan pálida a la nieve, al sol tan ardido.
And likewise, as a result of suffering, I am sad up to my head and sadder down to my ankle, and seeing bread crucified, the turnip bloodied, the onion crying, cereal in general, flour, salt made dust, water fleeing, wine and ecceomo, such pallid snow, such an arduent sun. How, human brothers, not to tell you that I can no longer stand it and can no longer stand so much drawer, so much minute, so much lizard, and so much inversion, so much distance, and so much thirst for thirst.
¿Cómo, hermanos humanos, no decirnos que ya no puedo, y ya no puedo con tanto cajón, tanto minuto, tanta lagartija y tanta inversión? Y tanto lejos y tanta sed de sed. Señor Ministro de Salud, ¿qué hacer? Ah, desgraciadamente, hombres humanos, hay, hermanos, muchísimo que hacer.
Mr. Minister of Health, what to do? Ah, unfortunately, human men, human women, human beings, there is, brothers, sisters, beings, much, too much to do. Thank you so much for the double reading, Mónica. And I should say we added some genders into the poem on behalf of Vallejo. I'm sure if he lived today, he would be thinking a little bit more broadly. That poem was probably written just around the eve of the Spanish Civil War. So he was thinking about similar things that we're thinking about right now. I want to just signal a couple of other poems I was thinking of reading. I'm not going to read them, but I was also thinking of reading Sappho's Fragment 16, which is that beautiful poem where she says what the most beautiful thing on earth is. And in particular, the scholar Paige Dubois reads it as a political poem where she's refuting what Homer has praised as the most beautiful thing, war. And she says, no, in fact, it's Anactoria walking across the plains toward me, not war. So it's this beautiful moment. So just to signal that, and I'm gonna read some of my poems. Although we could read Vallejo all day, I think. Okay, so I'm going to start with some poems from this long project I've been working on called Your Kingdom. And by Your Kingdom, I mean the animal kingdom. I'm going to read, the first piece is an essay that goes in and out of poetry, and I'm just going to read a couple pages of that, and then a couple poems from that, and then a couple new things. This essay poem excerpt is from Nothing, the title, Nothing in Evolution Makes Sense Except in the Light of Phylogeny. Can you all hear all right, by the way? Does my sound good? Okay. One July, among the California redwoods, I watched a fire-colored salamander lumber over a log, and so my mind was ignited to meditate on shoulder girdles. Amphibians invented them. In the mid-19th century, the German biologist Ernst Haeckel coined the term phylogeny to contain the notion of the organismal lineages we all passed through. You too may have admired the drawings of diatoms, shells, jellyfish, radiolarians, and spiders he sketched to describe life on Earth. Phyla, tribe, stem, branch, geny, born, birth, phylogeny, all the plants who grew to be you, all the animals who did. I don't mean because you were the telos causa, the reason or end result, and I don't mean because you ate them. I mean because they invented Earth. Eventually, they also invented you. They twisted and turned and licked and hissed and allowed you to exist. Phylogeny, a word I loved, was invented by a man who believed in eugenics, a word in turn invented by a man who invented the term nature versus nurture. You, good, well, Jenny, birth, born. Ecology, phylum, protista are also words first made in Haeckel's mounding mouth. Here I am at the bottom of Haeckel's world riddle, every word I utter haunted, in conflict with all the animals. Can anything ever be held away from human tongues? Some hunters in ritual sideways the names. For bears, Arctus, Ursus, a taboo on naming what is wild. Instead of bear, a hunter said, the brown one, honey eater, good calf, honey pig. As soon as a bear crept out of a word did its work to erase the bear. The animals' names light up in crackling flames, names main and unmain. Now we are rolling around on Earth, draping our tongues in Latin things. We always said the bird doesn't care what you call it. That's one way I'm different from a bird. This is called Sea in Sound. We came to think we'd thought everything, and we came to think we knew it, then we knew we didn't, and we hadn't, and we wouldn't. For other animals had thought other things, and there was no way of knowing or thinking what these things were, how a crab cerebrates a hardened, harried escape across sands damp with night, and had a grackle recongressed its torn skin and kin and kind on unvertiginous grasses earthbound. All albatrosses deduced aerodynamic efficiency in adjacent air. If you tap two pebbles together, can you tell how deep the cave is? If you were a bat, you'd do it in a throat squeeze, tongue click, staring a rock in the face, and the rock is staring you back. Rocks become you, worn lightly, your rock face, gold and gray, your rock face, gold and gray. One more from this series, and then I'll read 2 new poems. Polishing my animal mirror. I was polishing my animal. Oh, this actually very much in conversation with Anne Waldman, I'll say that. And takes one little cluster of words from Christopher Dewdney, the Canadian poet. Polishing my animal mirror. I was polishing my animal mirror. No moths appeared there in the single crystal genetic light, in the dark mirror candle night. I was polishing my animal mirror, examining my animal teeth. A snake appeared in the mirror's thin gravel driveway. Someone had run over it, had flattened it into permanent S shape. In the animal mirror, my incisors were not fangs, but surely they could still tear meat. Yes, the cat. Yes, the bear. I was polishing my animal mirror in non-invasive knowing and wondering about control, the magic skin of this animal mirror. Don't worry, that's just me, you say to yourself, shining like a violet ground beetle under a stone. Starfish are near vertebrates over to the left, coelacanth on the far side, riding toward you and birds, reptilian branch aflame on the plain. In the animal mirror, mollusks are inching toward earthworms who, touching themselves, touch earth anew each time they move. All right, let's see. Maybe I'll just do one more, yeah? Yeah, just do one more. So I wanted to read something new. This is just typed straight from my journal. Doesn't have a title yet. Joy, just joy. Joy, just joy? No, joy, just joy. Just joy? No. Allow no arms here. Here, only joy. Legs? Legs allowed? No, no legs, only joy. Heads? Heads allowed? No, just joy. Are porcupines allowed? Okay, porcupines allowed and joy. Air? Air okay? Yes, okay, air. But no hands and joy. Thank you all, thank you. Hands allowed.
Thank you, Eleni. And thank you, Mónica. I'm going to introduce Christopher Ray Pérez. And I have a slightly broken version of a horoscope to read for Christopher too. But first, Christopher is a poet from the Rio Grande Valley of Texas. His published works of poetry and fiction in English. Can everybody hear me okay? I should have asked that first. But I can't do things in the proper order anymore. His published works of poetry and fiction in English and Spanish include On the Heels of Our Enemies, 427-375, Regeneración, an untitled collaboration with Barbara S., El Siete Machos, Reynosa, which is a chapbook that's available as a free downloadable PDF, and Compendio Palestino Puertorriqueño en Proceso. His book, Gauguin's Notebook, received the 2015 Madeline P. Plonsker Prize from Lake Forest College. Since 2012, he's edited a nomadic publication in, of, and around Latin America called Dulce Estilo Criollo. Christopher is a former visiting lecturer at Al Quds Bard College for Arts and Sciences in Palestine, and he's the current program director at the Bard Micro College at Brooklyn Public Library. In his spare time, he's both an astronaut and a cosmonaut, and he is a Virgo. And the horoscope that seems to have come forward for Virgo today is you're not at your emotional best with the sun opposite Mars retrograde. Be proactive and avoid situations that you know will push your buttons. And he's still here reading. The lofty din of mushrooms assumes an identity quite apart from omelets and shirt fronts, with the past falling away as an acceleration of nerves. Please welcome Christopher.
Thank you. Thanks for that great introduction and horoscope reading, Anselm. And thanks to Mónica as well and everyone else who's here in attendance along with the Rail. I'm really excited to be sharing some work with you, as well as reading a poem after that by the Argentinian poet Oliverio Girondo. So I thought I would read 2 poems along with several footnotes to the poems from this long, slow project that I've been working on for the past 2 years or so. The working title is An Economy of Circulated Figures, and its inspiration is a neighborhood and market in Mexico City called Tepito. And so the way that I've been writing these poems is by visiting the market, finding various kinds of objects that are for sale. Basically everything and anything is for sale in this market to a degree, and then writing about these objects and seeing what kind of happens as I think about them and put them in relation to everything else. So I read some poems at a Rail event a couple of months ago, and I think that object might have been a football jersey. There's like a figurine as well. The 2 objects that I'm going to read about today are a sponge and a dildo. So I'll go ahead and just start the reading. The sponge. And I'm reading off my computer, so my eyes might be kind of darty. Cleanliness operates the abode as one way to create sovereign space. Today, 2 sponges priced together on the street repeat anachronisms of perverted inside jokes. The exchange is a heavy-duty sponge, with one side absorbent, the other for scouring, a mode of comportment entirely modern in look. Cleanliness. Smells, beginning with Mayakovsky, didn't understand smells. Why even revolutionaries here use scent? Gallons of soapy water, washing public streets, taken on as intimate duty, replicated liturgical incense. All of us want to imagine window displays in present neighborhoods broken into, but the order of listening to the thing ourselves turns rigid, self-contained. To have to flagellate an autonomous desire, coordinating melancholy, a doubt of refuse, the performance for modicums. Sovereign. King-size blankets, a tableau of wolves, black pumas, and green parrots. For winter, spruce up the house. Burnt offerings picked up from the Botanica fumigate the soul. Up above, I witness Kinich Hanapakal takes off in spaceship. Where to, Lord Kinich Hanapakal? The sarcophagus, the chariot. On Mars, it unlikely a Mexican will colonize life. Let's give into the reason of reason, my heart of hearts. Someone might reciprocate with hieroglyphs. Street. Codigo faggy became a thing along ruts where carts passed. All down the street, since he heard back where the oily voices hide, was the kind of shit that doesn't agree with me. The tourists, arm in arm, expected spontaneous dance. Heaven sent from themselves with their pink welted legs. I was about to ask why. You walk around without a belt like a dead man. But the family got us thinking about fidelity, a trauma of yeses, the one echo that began to congeal right where the cracks meet. Exchange. Occult passages like tunnels, a red ladder in a bathroom, 300 kilos. Graffiti of Pablo Escobar and Bugs Bunny. Who dropped the cell phone with saved numbers of El Chori, Elvis, and Brian? It wasn't the ballerinas with coins in their shoes, bits of skin stuck to gold-plated rings. They say the scooter we took belonged to a demon, but no one believed us. We got drunk in the morning. The women sold blouses, button-ups, t-shirts for cheap. Absorbent. The time was not ripe. Their civilizing strategy was to deliver visors like we were engrossed in different bodies. The hand that happened to close tight liked it that way. There was the accordionist then among Uranus milieus left to dark corners. One prayer on the wall where the Jesus is painted with pretty eyelashes. No one could get down to bear the beams of love. I buy cleaning products too. I alleviate a breathing wound. Near Eje Central, the vista was covered in corn. Comportment. A norm would be for bodies to move outside the utopia of borderlessness. Is it good? It is a behavior that's relevant. What derives from the gut? One ferrous social biome transgressing the bolero's phenotype. In the morning when the stands get set up, the hecatomb rises. Alphabets are put together and taught. And so the second poem, A Dodo. Languid or erect, soft-skinned or hard-shelled, the effect of a replacement confounds work ethic and cultural masculinity in ways that displace the production of envy. If there be one doubt of compensation, the expectation will defer continuously on the basis of autonomy. Languid. A mad invective against the language of French, the melted subcutaneous layers. Onlookers realize what they are enough to deem themselves real. Trashed alleyways resuscitate a newborn babe. In this season, any impotence traces back to bookish fantasy. I miss the sensation of touching the roof of my mouth with the tip of my tongue, to feel estranged or broken down. Replacement. Freely, some would splash rubbing alcohol, bring God's flood again to recur a covenant. Throughout the 70s, when buying any secondhand Texas good was a superb exchange or deal, what was ours even then without any of us having firm stools? If we are doing it together, it counts as human commerce, a mercenary's anaphoric poetry. I am walking past a pair of Levi's in the great outdoors. Displace. Unlike the injunction to replace a man, inside the bottle, a scorpion, the sun, a teardrop. My grandma said she had the biggest balls. My Mexico girlfriend likes to eat out sushi. All of this in a different language was for no one to translate on my own time or on your account. Envy. Synectical reduction discards new bodies. Among so much capsaicin and papaya, we are fingering a rose. I permit myself. Everyone redefines individual preference. What is the thing you don't have that no one wants without amorously luminescent skin? If we mean our attitudes to clash, the dogs get inflated, engorged. It would become a question of milky women, the use of verbs in the preterite tense. Compensation. Ya te cargó el payaso, they say. They say now is the time to make fools of even ourselves, they say. Great, and so I want to close with a poem by Oliverio Girondo that I translated a long time ago and just turned to it a day or two ago in thinking about choosing a poem for this reading. Kind of similar to Eleni, I want to mention that one of the other poets and poems I was thinking about is the great Roque Dalton, who has an amazing poem called, I think it's something like Parable, beginning with revisionist volcanology that I thought of reading, especially since Dalton is kind of an exemplary case of the political poet. But I opted for this poem instead by Girondo, who might not typically be considered an exemplary political poet, but I just love what he has to say about love and the way in which he uses language to say those things about love. The poem's titled Everything Was Love. There also another translation does exist by a different translator, and I think the two are quite different. Everything was love. Everything was love, love. There was nothing more than love. Love was found everywhere. Only love could be talked about. Love soft-boiled, a la vanilla. Love to the possessor, love in payments. Analyzable love, analyzed. Ultramarine love, equestrian love. Love of paper mache, love with milk. Full of preventions, preventatives. Full of short circuits, hindrances. Love with a big O, an uppercase O, drizzled with oil, covered with white flowers. Spermatozoal love, Esperantis. Disinfected love, unctuous. Love with its accessories, its responses, its shortcomings of punctuality, orthography, its telephonic and cardiac interruptions. Love that ignites the heart of the orangutans, the firemen. Love that exalts the song of the frogs below the branches, rips off the buttons from the boots, feeds itself jealousy and jello. Ineluctable love and mulcted love. Incandescent love and incautious love. Non-deformable love. Naked love. Love, love that is simply love. Love and nothing more than love. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Christopher. That was so beautiful. Maybe, can you tell us also where we can find the translation if you don't post it on the chat? And maybe also tell us what collection of Girondos does it come in? The Spanish, because it's, yeah, I didn't know that poem. It's so gorgeous.
So I don't have that translation anywhere, but I'd be happy to share it with anyone and everyone. If you just, maybe I'll put my email in the chat and I can share it with people. I believe the poem might come from Espantapájaros, Scarecrow, and other poems by Oliverio Girondo. I translated it way back and I don't have the book with me here in New York, but I'm pretty sure it's in that collection. It's a really nice one.
Thank you so much. So our next reader today is Gabriela Jauregui, who's joining us from Mexico City, which is particularly delightful. I forgot to say that Eleni was joining us from Providence, Rhode Island, the land of the calamari. So Gabriela Jauregui, joining us from Mexico City, is an old friend and collaborator. She's written many books, among them one of this little ones produced by Gato Negro Ediciones, Many Fiestas, which is a series of manifestos, but she called it Men Fiestas. Leash Seeks Lost Bitch, published by Song Cave, and Control Decay, published by Akashic Books. She's also the editor and author of the Spanish language books Tsunami and the short story collection La Memoria de las Cosas, The Memory of Things, as well as co-author of Taller de Taquimecanografía. I will not ask anyone to say that back to us, Taller de Taquimecanografía. It's a bit of a tongue twister, but suffice it to say that Gabriela is an excellent typist. She got straight A's in all her typing classes back in grades in middle school and high school, and is an excellent collaborator. She holds a PhD in comparative literature from USC, an MFA in creative writing from Riverside, University of California, Riverside, and an MA in comparative literature from UC Irvine. She teaches English literature at UNAM, and she has been named one of the 39 best Latin American authors under 39 by the Hay Festival's Bogota 39 list, and she co-founded a wonderful press that I definitely encourage you all to check out, called Surplus Ediciones in Mexico. It is a collective. So Gabriela is a Capricorn, and we have a number of Capricorns today on the bill. Capricorns are independent. They are masters of self-control. This is what it says.
Okay.
Correct us. She's ambitious, persistent, practical, sensitive, and disciplined. In the same fashion as in which something leapt out to Anselm, I found this that I think could be really interesting. A combination of old soul wisdom and inner resourcefulness. These strange sea, goat, mer creatures are often completely misunderstood by most people. Due to the common perception that their tough personalities extend all the way through to their core. Don't be daunted by their often stoic and maybe even stern exterior traits. Internally, these women are incredibly sensitive and emotional, but they won't often show it. No one to wear their hearts on their sleeves. They may not give you any idea how they really feel. Now, I contest this. I think they got you wrong, Gabi, because Gabriela, on top of all the other things she does, is an activist, a tireless activist who is very vocal about how she feels about certain things. I have never seen her not be vocal about things. And she also is a player in an all-girls band called Nidada in Mexico City. So with that, Gabi, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this invitation. I'm very excited. You can hear me, okay? Great. I'm very honored and excited to be here. And I'm gonna start off the reading with a poem from a poet I admire greatly. And their name is Danez Smith. Probably most of you know him. He's not that well known here in Mexico, but they're not that well known, sorry, but I love their work. So here goes my president. Today, I elect Jonathan, 11 and already making roads out of water, young genius, blog writer, little community activist, curls tight as Pinky swears, black as my nation. I trust the world in his tender blooming hands. I trust him to tell us which rivers are safe to drink and which hold fish like a promise. And I elect Eve Ewing, who I know would misfrizzle the country into one big craft room where grandmas finger paint the national budget and uncles stand around smoking blacks, plotting on stars for our escape. She could walk on the podium at her inauguration and say, the future is now, and we'd all marvel at the sun and moon looping the sky like a gif as the cars learned to fly and our skin grew bulletproof. And Colin Kaepernick is my president, who kneels on the air, bent toward a branch, throwing apples down to the children and vets. And Rihanna is my president, walking out of global summits with wine glass in hand, our taxes returned in gold to dust on our faces into coins. And my mama is my president, her grace stunts on amazing brown hands, breaking brown bread over the mouths of the hungry until there are none unfed. And my grandma is my president, and her cabinet is her cabinet, because she knows to trust what the pan knows, how the skillet wins the war. And the man I saw kicking his way down the river, he is my president. And the trans girl making songs in her closet, spinning the dark into a booming dress, she too is my president. And Shonda Rhimes is my president, and Nate Marshall is my president, and Trina is my president, and the boys outside Walgreens selling candy for a possibly fictional basketball team are my presidents, and the bus driver who stops after you yell wait only twice is my prez, and the dude at the pizza spot who will give you a free slice if you are down to wait for him to finish the day's fourth prayer is my president, and my auntie, only a few months clean, but clean, she is my president, and my neighbor who holds the door open when my arms are full of laundry is my president, and every head nod is my president, and every child singing summer with a red sweet tongue is my president, and the birds and the cooks and the single moms especially, and the weed dealers and the teachers and the meter maid who lets you slide, and the cab drivers who stop, and the nurses' swollen feet, and the braiders' exhausted hands, and the bartender and Beyonce and all her kids and the rabbi and the sad girls and the leather daddy who always stops to say good morning and the boy crying on the train and the son and abuela who rubs his back and the uncle who offers him water and the drag queen who begins to hum, oh, my presidents, my presidents, my presidents, show me to our nation. My only border is my body. I sing your names, I sing your names, my mighty anthem. So that is the NSE Smith president. They are my presidents too. Someone is ringing the doorbell precisely now. I guess I'm not gonna answer. So next up, I am gonna read a poem in Spanish. And hopefully those of you who don't speak Spanish can enjoy some of the sounds. And this is something I was invited to read at a meeting, Zapatista meeting in Chiapas. And here it goes now. 76 hipótesis con una sola objeción, es decir, el presente se presenta. Nos están desapareciendo, silenciando, borrando, que si nos han precarizado, que si nos han reducido, austerizado, minimizado, que si queremos regenerar, que si nos exotizan, que si nos apropian, pero nos están matando. Que si nos están minorizando, que si hay que hacerlo por amor al arte, pero hay amores que matan, que si nos monolingüizan, que si nos monocultivan, que si nos han pesticiidado, pero nos están matando, que si nos quieren domesticar, que si la cultura vive, la lucha sigue, que si no nos distribuyen, no nos publican, no nos exponen, que si nos manosean, que si nos esterilizan, pero nos están matando, que si el margen, que si la periferia, que si la capital, que si el capital, que si el Colegio Nacional, que si el capitalismo ya cayó, que si de paso nos aplastó, que si las raíces no se cuadran, pero nos están matando, que si estamos en devenir, que si duele, que si ves la tempestad y no te hincas, que si prefiero morir de pie que vivir arrodillada, que si hay que leer entre líneas, que si la impunidad, pero nos están matando, que si traía minifalda, que si la pigmentocracia, que si los transgénicos, que si ser transgénero, que si la poesía, el ensayo, la narrativa, que si la violencia de género, pero nos están matando, que si las lenguas desaparecen, que si las semillas. Ay, perdón, sorry, someone is literally knocking at my door. I have to go like in my apartment. Sorry, I'm gonna have to go answer. I'm very sorry because they keep knocking and knocking. Okay, the post person. Sorry, that was crazy. Que si las semillas, que si nombrar es crear mundos, que si para imaginar el futuro hay que nombrar el presente, que si cómo harán las culturas muertas, que si somos invisibles, que si somos invencibles, pero nos están matando, que si la cultura de a pie, que si las torres de marfil, que si desde allá arriba nos disparan y nos están matando, que si somos madres solteras, que si los límites del cuerpo, pero nos están matando, que si donde dice organismo debimos leer orgasmo, que si el gozo, que si compartir, que si en colectivo, que si en común, que si la comunalidad, que si las mujeres, que si quien las desmembró, pero nos están matando, que si el cuerpo del texto, que si el cuerpo del delito, que si el CURP, que si la firma, que si la rima, que si el verso libre, que si se le arrima, pero nos están matando, que si por deslenguada, que si mi lengua siempre es ajena, que si las palabras clave, que si me clavé en la textura, que si el texto, que si su contexto, pero nos están matando, que si cultura e identidad, que si cultura y pertenencia, que si cultura y su impertinencia, que si aprender y desaprender, que si cultura es sustantivo y verbo, que si cultura y autenticidad, que si cultura y autoridad, porque cultivar es cuidar y por eso nos están matando. And so this poem has to do with the fact that 10 women a day are murdered in Mexico just for the fact that they are women and girls. So that's what I wanted to sort of address here, and how do we keep writing? How do we keep doing anything when this keeps happening, right? So anyway, that's not unrelated, I guess, to everything that's happening in the world. And of course, the pandemic has made this kind of situation worse, and, you know, has kept women sort of trapped in their houses and apartments with often the people who end up killing them. Now I'm going to read one in English. He said she threw herself from the stairs, leaving one shoe behind as a souvenir. He said she strangled and hung herself with the phone cord at the booth. He said she slipped and split her head and bled out because she locked herself in the bathroom from the outside. He said she just turned up in his closet all carved up. I guess she wasn't so good with knives, he said. He said she left the gas open in the stove, then cut off her own hair. He said his other two girlfriends did the same. He said she shot herself in the face twice. He said she decided to stop fighting him, to stop breathing, he said. Finally, she was just quiet. So quiet. The next one is called The Great Rumor. How difficult it is. It's that one on that table. It's not like the others. It's not from one to another, but from one to any other. So tender, so warm, so companion-like. I need to explain it, everything that belongs to it. Use what exists. It's about writing and then, such a fraud, words again. To fill with words this hole, this void. Each word is a crushing recession into the first. All of its bones are marked. It looks like one of those blades. It is not the eloquent sermon, nor the pious trap of the shoes. I feel it trembling inside me, clean and brisk. Let it burst already. And the last one, those are sort of unpublished works. And the last one I'll read from is a little, is a poem that's in this chapbook from the Song Cave called Leash Seeks Lost Bitch. And here goes. Pretext. Leash seeks lost bitch. Pretext. To find oneself in movement, to become a local fixture, but not fixed. A flaneur, a transject. First half of the 19th century, a poet walks his lobster on a leash. First half of the 21st century, an artist flies out to Paris and in an act of will, intuition, and humor, takes off his red argyle socks, ties them, knots them into a lobster shape, and ties them to a makeshift leash to drag them around the same garden. What remains is the leash. Context, restriction, control, cord, metal or leather distance to the neck, encounter between hand and body, training, leathered obedience, braided softness, nylon is ordinary, even a harness, even a ring, knots that slip for greater agility, retractable prosthesis, the law of the halter, of the rein, pulling, prevention, composite material protection, limitation without punishment, reflective material, cutback of accidents, variety, models, color, design, hold, toy, sexual accessory, never before seen speedy connection, pending, controversy, laxity, elasticity, push and pull, to the ankle, resistance, humiliation, extension. Context. Elasticity, obedience is limitation without punishment, variety, models, color, design, composite materials, ring, anus. In nylon, it's ordinary, never before seen, fast connection, cord, extension, leather, distance, accident, metal up to the neck, shit up to the neck, protection, comfortable and tight hook, law, hand and body, accessory, companion elasticity, extension, greater braided agility, command with certainty. Context, to heal, to walk around. To the walker can only be local. extension restriction, training a ring, variety without punishment, reflective compounds, get a hold of the subject, run, variety, greater agility, collar prosthesis, lightweight nylon harness, halter and rein, get a hold of the model, the softness, objection, and yet the bitch is lost. Abjection. The lobster is in fact the animal self coming out of the depths and being trained, tamed, walked on a leash in broad daylight. Who is walking whom? To self-leash. Context. Leash seeks lost bitch. Pretext. A thick layer of plaster, an envelope, a compact skin. Plaster had become a constraint. A plaster that both contained and cohered an agonizing affective body. A clandestine shelter. The plaster that had until then been the guarantee of survival to the point where it could be mistaken for skin. Text. A plaster is a leash. Subtext. How to pitch against this hardening. Objection. Plaster has a certain level of absorbency. Pretext. Cocteau talks to his mural in Leicester Place, London. The material is porous. Context. Plaster is an ear, to hear, hear. Abjection, mixing, causing reactions, effervescences, thickening, dealing in the mystical and the perverse. Is the animal self still on a leash? To fizz. Subtext, the grotesque, caves filled with alfresco decorations, mostly frames and other peripheral ornaments depicting the place where human becomes animal, plant becomes human, the hybrid. Pretext. Painting al fresco implies freshness, something raw, unfinished, and yet there is hardening, irreversibility. This hardening of the paint on the walls is history itself. It is also religion. Plaster requires time, absorption, evaporation, setting, and yet there is resistance, resisting through marks, bites, surface tension. Pretext. If plaster is an ear, to mark and bite it, an act of violence or desire, alchemy or boxing. Context, plaster heals, think of cataplasms. If porous ear, then it is also hospitable. Make yourself at home here. Text, how to prevent this petrification, to blast and to make last, an act of vitality. Thank you. And apologies for the interruption.
Thank you, Gabriela. That was amazing. Sometimes the mail just has to be delivered, I suppose. Next up, we're going to welcome Uche Nduka. Uche is a poet and essayist, author of 12 volumes of poetry. The most recent is brand new. It's just out from City Lights. It's called Facing You. His writing's been translated into German, Italian, Arabic, Romanian, Finnish, and French. He teaches at Queens College. Today's his birthday. He's a Libra. And according to this ridiculous horoscope I found in San Francisco this morning, for Libra, this is the worst day to ask for anything because even if the answer is yes, the only thing you'll hear is no. It's fucked up. Postpone till next week. The theory of calisthenics is tiring. The orgone is a bust, but a very touching aperitif is being prepared. With the past falling away as an acceleration of nerves thundering and shaking aims its aggregating force like the metro towards a realm of encircling travel, rending the sound of adventure and becoming ultimately local and intimate. Please welcome Uche Nduka.
That's the most anarchic reading of my horoscope I've had all my life. So thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. Having a poetry reading on my birthday, that means the party just started, just beginning. I feel lucky because of that. And I would like to read a few of my poems, as you all expect, but I'll have a preface for them. I want to have a preface. I'm concluding with Erika Hunt's 2 poems. So let me just read the preface for mine, and then I read 3 of my poems, and then I go over to Erika to conclude. The first preface, poetry. When I asked why he was shot on the street by a cop, the counter asked, what does that have to do with poetry? First preface. And the second preface, you must have the guts. You must have the guts to save this city, to double trouble my conversation. The sun walks too fast on the South Shore. From a tremor, I take my cool. I am frantic on the balcony rail. You must have the guts to tear absence apart. I like taking off on my own. I like taking off my clothes for no reason. I don't want to barge in on a shot in the back. So those are the prefaces. And for the poems I'm going to read, I read from what I'm beginning to call the Bainbridge Island Notebook. I've been here for about a month now in Bainbridge Island. It's near Seattle. And I suddenly began to write. I didn't know it was going to happen. So I'm going to read directly from the notebook. And the first poem, the title might change after a while. It's A New Direction. It's titled A New Direction. To turn in a new direction in jury selection, the strict scrutiny of the casket procession, nor for denigration of celebrants. I made a joke of which I was the butt. What's coming down the pike is another pike. What's at the end of a tunnel is another tunnel. The end gaming, the guy in the black shirt. She fought like hell for justice. Tough-minded flower child. And the second poem is titled Beak on Leaf. Dry grief of a dry leaf. Beak on dry leaf, pecking. Convulsion, a white fowl for the morning. But they put the morning inside the coffin and nailed it shut. And silently walked into the nearly faded labyrinths of a bloodied country. On a watercraft, the human comedy of horrors. When we self-righteousness surrender its foolishness. White sunglasses on a watercraft, moonscape in Eagle Harbor. The sky was a gift the island gave us. To amuse, not to appease. Coming off nowhere doesn't cut it. We felt a lot better singing it back to acidic consequence. And now I go over to Erika Hunt's poems from an anthology called What I Say, Innovative Poetry by Black Writers in America. The first of our poems I would like to read from that book is called Personal. Logic seeks object to undergo its rigorous eyewitness. The rest, a test of patience. objects collected, cloak of visibility, hypothetical continuity, simultaneously independent propositions, grammar, a cause, no reasonable emotion, refused, no reasonable emotion, refused. And her other poem is titled Afterword. Chords are sharp and the noises mysterious. I close my eyes and I'm still coming around the curve. After image on Retina Park. And I don't know what will happen next. There is no guide to context for this leap to land into. Rigor of rope and railing. Failing that, what parallel lines we keep. That's it.
Thank you so much, Uche. That was incredible.
Thank you.
And thank you for making time for us on your birthday. Again, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Asiya Wadud, who's the author of Crosslight for Young Bird, published by Nightboat Books a couple years ago. It was a finalist for the Hurston Wright Legacy Award in Poetry. Her other collections include Day Pulls Down the Sky, a filament in gold leaf, written collaboratively with Okwi Okbok Wasili, published by Belladonna, and Syncope, published by Ugly Duckling Press. No Knowledge is Complete Until It Passes Through My Body is forthcoming from Nightboat Books. Asiya teaches poetry to children at St. Anne's School and occasionally leads an English conversation group for new immigrants at the Brooklyn Public Library. Asiya is a member of the Belladonna Collective, 2019-2020 Lower Manhattan Cultural Council Artists in Residence, and also currently a writer in residence at Dance Space Project. She lives in Brooklyn, New York. And as I said earlier, there were a number of Capricorns on the bill today. She is a Capricorn, and as proof of her doggedness and independent mind, I was thinking about something she said in a really beautiful interview published in in Bomb magazine. She says, "I'm interested in the fissures and the breaks, what happens just beyond the frame of the official record, what is worth the news. Official documents and the record speak volumes in her woeful and in their woeful and willful absences." And we'll see more of that today. Her horoscope for today recommends something really interesting that I think we might all want to listen to as well. Do your own thing today and don't take garbage from others, essentially. Take control of the issue when you see it needs to become something. Other people may be overreacting and may say whatever comes to their point of view. Do not change your wardrobe just to make things easier for others. Swerve around and tell them. Thank you. And Asiya, take it away. Great.
Whoa. I don't know what to say about the horoscope, but I think I'm just going to take it all. I'm going to take it all to heart and just take it all. Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be part of this series and have a chance to be with you all and to share some work today. And it feels so strange to gather, but also important to gather. Uche, happy birthday today.
Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to just read a couple poems of my own, and then I also wanted to share some poems from Don Lundy Martin's Good Stock, Strange Blood. So I'll start off with a few of my own poems, and I'll just read them. Let me see if I can. Okay. This is a poem, it's called L, and it's after Claire Wamenholm's poem called O. Long live our loyalty, how it loops, falls, lumbers, lulls, and lists, finally resisting its own limpness. Long live anything that has long wished to live, the lasso, the lake, the limit, the left lane, the spices spinning on their lazy Susan, the lavender field at peak bloom, illustrious and oven hot, land and the outliers, land and the legion of the Outer Banks, land and the landed, latitude, and that was my limit until I looked left, what length we expect to cover in these longitudinal years, early loops sliced lengthwise to see their insides. The latent exercise of the loom, left to right, layered weft and warp, listening to its language, leached all across the living room. An antecedent to loyalty is drift, drift or look away from the limit. Let me look at the warped shapes inside the lava, angry loaves lifting the mouth off the mountain, then lifting clear off the mountain. Leavened loaves at the limit of their leavening, left loaves rock hard obsidian thoughts make. My yearling, even luxury has its limits, having lived or existed all year long. Love is a lifeline of long live our loyalty, how it loops, falls, lumbers, lulls, and lists, finally resisting its own limpness. A lifeline or ulna, all my limber bones held in my left hand. I have placed the bones on a bay laurel wreath, placed the wreath inside of a barrel, lined up the barrel alongside other barrels laden with laurels and ulnas. What to say of lavishing honor? What to say of the laconic I once tried? What of leisure or lassitude? Lateral pines loosen at the ends of their branches, languishing before they fall, loop through the extra air. I am alone in the lake region, algae bloom at my ankles, loaves lifting the mountains to make fresh archipelagos. Okay, and I'm going to read a long poem that's actually in conversation a little bit of the interview that you were reading from, Mónica. It's this piece. It's called "The Order Was in the Hour of Worship," and it's in conversation with a bunch of different things, but mostly with Saidiya Hartman's her newest book. Why am I forgetting the name right now? It must be somewhere. Oh yes, Wayward Lives, Beautiful Experiments. It's in conversation with some of the themes from that book, and then also with Simone Lee's work at the Guggenheim in a show last year, Loophole of Retreat. So this is called "The Order Was in the Hour of Worship." The order was in the hour of worship. Stained glass windows act as mosaic. All radiant acts of attrition, all foregrounded prayers supplanted, all prayers a back channel. Every pew held our bodies. We turned our bodies to the covenant, buttressed by the Mason-Dixon and all its flat border counties. God vested his attention along its northern border, vested his attention where he wanted, rested his attention along the crest. The only act of God was in the hour of our worship, the cross-board directives, directives that could shower us as a trinity, shrouds of our own making. All exemplars prayers supplanted, all prayers supplementary work. The sun shone its piercing distance. It shone well because it wanted. The sun shone through the church pew. The sun shunted us along the back channel brood. The little tight crest began to peel at the seams. It began to gestate, it seems, as it peeled back. Anything that has crossed my paths, I would mother. Any semblance of family elocution, I'm mother. All fell logic familiar, huddled for warmth in the space between us. That's what distance does to us. This gilded foremost endeavor, clenched in chlorophyll, wrapping tendrils towards the sun, at every breath my countenance. My long path to wholeness, no country can grant me that. My lonesome 3/5, the precise mathematics of partition all across my selvage. Yesterday I sat with the ocean, seeking out its white noise, held a shell up to my ear, settled into its subterfuge. I took a sound recording of the waves, sound wave speculation. What's with the undercurrent? All these ocean grifters, what the flotsam water held in staunch relief. Yesterday I rose from my bed, Saturday morning, rode the ferry outbound, all New Amsterdam soundless current, a polyphonic noise system. No language was stayed. I broke with tradition. Hello, I called into a black vacuum. What I got was the virtuous salt sonic. What I got was a reply. Order comes to the house of worship. I slid my fingers through the hot sand. The sun burned my right leg, I let it. The planes, they flew overhead, I let them. The seagulls drifted outbound, let them. All birds alight when bruised, if their wings will carry them. Hello, I called into a vacuous island. From the bird's eye, we see the other islands. From the bird's eye, any light? From the bird's eye, pinprick? From the bird's eye, the sun was burning my leg, I let it. I counted 17 planes. I would triple that to count the gulls. I listened to the May ocean. I was still marooned in May. I was taking flight in May. I did my day as I wanted. I was still childless. I took my time to get to the ocean. I rode the ferry lengthwise. I loved how its motor trilled, strumming us through its cerulean back channels. All prayers supplanted. Every pew held our bodies. When we got to the waters, all the oak pews faced the Atlantic to carry us outbound silk coffers, to sit with the words held in the pews. The sun burned a hole right through me, I let it. It was a better means to supplant the missives. The pews got filled with our bodies, our linen garments cuffed by hem by selvage, salt-lined and miasma, little grains of sand embedded, all the water ebbs and the tides bind. A few came with long rods named birches, all the branches peeled back. The order was in the hour of the workhorse, the others were in the house of worship. Any small act delivers the Lord's vested ships. Next we managed the heap, the lumber. We dressed our hands in the lumber gloves. We used the Gramberg sawmill and its guiding system. We felled the trees and trusted they become lumber. Wasted not a single splinter, all lumber cast from selvage. Diligently the Bostrichidae emerged from their exit wounds, circular fissures in the wood's surface. We stowed inside them in ardent language, undo the pestilence, smoke out the dense lattice, the dead rising right to the surface, or better yet, let them live. They built the ship's deck around us. We remained in the pews. We closed our eyes as a protective message. We cupped our hands to our ears and amplify any noise, direct conduit to any ocean. Under this pestilence, the ship's birth is coming together. During the long construction, we never rose from the pews. We knew the order was in the hour of worship. One by one, the timber became what it could become. When we opened our eyes, we were on the water. The Atlantic is a matriline. Wake, borehole, wave crest, lumber, cadence, incandescence, all prayers of back channel, Mason-Dixon bifurcated, split along Garrett County. We touched the boat to bless it, touched all its minor parts, touched anything unruly. Beyond 3/5 is the rest of Plessy. The order was in the hour of the workhorse, doused our hands in the mineral oil, we blessed it, this our finished vessel, so it would shunt us far from here. No map governed our journey, the nautical chart, a rote index of possible nexts, barren, void, electric language, no map yet governs us, this no map governs our journey. The shrouds, we tucked them in the hull. For whatever was coming, we were to live through it. For whatever was coming, we were to live with it. For whatever was coming, we were to live in it. We existed in the margins of the coda. We exited the ocean, all ovum rendered worthless, all ovum meritocratic, nothing else but progeny. No map yet governs us, thus no map governs our journey. I'm etching anything in whatever substance remains viscous. The workhorse bruised canter, all working hours held in accord, long hours than long life, countenance convergent wholeness, the numerator is filmy ocean, dividend the whole planet, all colonial demarcation, held in full credence, as if the earth existed just to suffer this pillage. The order was vested in the red moon. The order was in the hour of worship. How threadbare this trinity, selvage, brackish viscosity, Mason-Dixon covenant. The sun shines its full distance. It casts its gaze how it wants it, and what it wants is the order of the workhorse. So what it gets is the order of the workhorse. Thanks. Okay, and I'm gonna read a few poems from Don Lundy Martin. And I think this book, I return to it often as a reminder about all kinds of things, but especially in this moment, just like merely about survival. Winter to trace. A life is to trace nothing at all but accumulation of events which themselves are not things. Mother, where are you? What questions burn the edges of your heart? I see the wrought iron cage you've spent so many years carving, careful attention to one's own insignificance in God's hand, God's little bird, pale day, crest over walk into leaves, mother in her house of leaks, roof tumble, and haze of light, shackle light. What in the world is this missing? What exists in the deep ways of broken? Whereas sunlight. Whereas matter in motion, you persist in concave before folds, carve a small incision, feed the white mouth a canned beat, da 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 da. Where is your excess limb, our pungent chest filled so tightly with gun of longing? Dear empty vessel, from end to end, along a fire road, plagues, then rationalities, how to say, we remain intact, however fractured, how to say, whereas once restrained, once ensnarement, now sand, leave wreckage by the roadside, burn all decayed tissue, tightrope from which we emerge. Thank you.
That was beautiful. Asiya, thank you so much. Thank you. And really great to hear Don Lundy Martin for you as well.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So next up is Anselm Berrigan, who, as you know, is the current poetry editor at the Brooklyn Rail. He and I, I've just learned, share more than one thing. I mean, we share a lot of things. I had that job at some point. We worked together at Brooklyn College. We worked together at the BARD MFA program. And it turns out we're both Leos. I'll get to that in a minute. First, I'll read his bio. So he was born in 1972 in Chicago. He is the author of several books of poetry, including Something for Everybody, Come In Alone, Notes from Irrelevance, Free Cell, and Integrity, and Dramatic Life. With Alice Notley and his brother Edmund Berrigan, he co-edited the collected poems of Ted Berrigan and the selected poems of Ted Berrigan. Berrigan was a New York State Foundation for the Arts Fellow in Poetry in 2007 and has received 3 grants from the Fund for Poetry. From 2003 to 2007, he served as artistic director of the Poetry Project at St. Mark's Church, and he is co-chair of writing at the Milton Avery Graduate School of the Arts and also teaches writing at Pratt Institute and Brooklyn College. As I said, he lives in New York City. So as it turns out, he was born on the same day as this poet who I translated. He was the first poet I ever translated from Spanish. His name is Gerardo Denis, a Mexican neo-Baroque poet born on August 14th as well. And one of the most incredible coincidences is that you can say one thing about Gerardo Denis is that he was a staunch debunker of cliches. And I don't know. There might be something there, Anselm. So for those of you born on August 14th, he's really incredible. He really, it's not an ounce of cliche in his writing. I'm just gonna read you our shared horoscope and then you don't have to do it. This is what I found. If you find yourself tired and irritable at the moment, Leo, you should know that this is normal. You may have had a few weeks that were a little too studious. Would you like to continue on the same path? Be careful that your ambitions don't lead you to serious physical exhaustion. You'll even be more frustrated if you get sick. So be wise and take care of your basic shopping needs.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. Can everybody hear me okay? Thanks to everybody who's read. Thank you for agreeing to do this and sharing all that amazing work with us. And thank you, everybody at the Rail. And thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm going to read a couple pieces of my own, and then I'm going to read some poems by Lorenzo Thomas. I thought of reading some work by Harriet Mullen also, but Lorenzo's collected poems was just published late last year by Wesleyan, and I've been reading through it and want to try to wrap my voice around a few of his pieces in this context, you know, in particular too. So I'm going to start first by, I'm going to read a poem. The title of this poem is Jim Brody, and Jim Brody was a poet who lived in New York and California and died in the early 1990s. And after the election in 2016, I found some odd comfort reading from this book of his called Heart of the Breath, and he had a lot of poems with people's names as titles, and then he wrote these poems that kind of looked like they were in these conventional triplet stanzas, but then contained all this explosive language. So I tried my hand at writing some Jim Brody imitations, and knowing they'd be more like collaborations, and called them all Jim Brody, and this is one of them. Jim Brody. Here is a contradiction involving time. Here's a counter-frictional hairy seat devolving time and time's uncle's shame. Here's a bobble-headed Jehovah, spotless and wicked as a wide-orbited, unemotional lamb cutting off its gibby-tripped legs to dance one-legged in the rain in Florida. Here is an I am defrosted, defronted, decrusted, decustardized, and dedappled yours with dwarf star lips anything surrounds. Claude Monet was one of these heiresses, a flying horse of wild crab language, more face under here's vicious deportation squalor. Here is a counterfactual spotlight for loveless professionals, all desire they meet as illusion. Here let me, if let there glow on and we. Here is so only stars writhing out street free. Herein in grace there this or violent will dealings. Here that firing marvelous on when she bespeaks. Here-ish rampant moronic palatial mind to Mr. Here buckles a pioneer. One reacheth whereas here's of him run explanation into when the this reveals likewise gone to vapor. Here's a likewise, pumping straight to your heart with a spliff of unsane word-shaped blasphemous shed rhythms toward its histories. Here's guppy marginal talkers, a bent other cruising items, all reborn armor, reaching envelops where separated tariff brains, get-gots brained and rebrained by interior post-astral domain. Here be trance, here be lanced. And this is a poem called Pregrets, also written a couple years ago. Pregrets. And being of the era in a kind of reproduction salad toss, the heavy back wheel pushing your flaming nostril race into foregrounds decorating corners, you gain entry to the understanding of every discrete thing, plaintive mess of certainties. We don't know dick, shit, or jack about each other. I, in fact, am talking to myself in a living room, doused in hairway to Stephen, the vape trails of hair chalk, telling the voices how much meaner the country has become, how internalized that meanness feels for all the recent depthless volume, that the on your own quality of it all remains unacknowledged. It reminds nowness of when we used to talk to the holes in our pants, strangers so inscrutable it stopped preying on our enigmatic desperation for contact. Nowness lived in the 80s too, you know. Hello, flying kick, faint, coming at us on the way out from Julian's Billiard Academy with Doug Oliver. Cornkind type cuts up the crypt. The ennoble shards go ordinary. We work too hard making them not go together. And then I want to try something here. So I'm gonna screen share, if that's okay with everybody, if I can arrange all these windows and make this work. Oh, this poem turned blue. Okay. All right. Oh, can I be made host?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, thank you. It's funny the way Zoom makes abstract language concrete and vice versa. Okay. All right, is everybody seeing this handwritten page? This kind of scan of a handwritten page. Ever since the pandemic hit, I've been writing in my notebook, but I have had a lot of trouble typing things up. So I've been writing things and then taking pictures of them. And then that's about the best I can do. But this one reproduced all right. I haven't tried to read something like this out loud, so I'm gonna just read it and scroll. And if I screw up, then it's just part of it, I guess. This is called Planet Terror. This is probably from May, I suppose. Quarantine splatter. The mirror inroad to dream. Unfortunately, I wrote that, go crying, in heavy imitation mode. Always. Deceptive floaters, pickled balls, scattered. I'm just cherry. Never actually said that. What's problematic is total global pandemic, not what you want. We eat brains, but we don't gain your knowledge. When my mouth detaches from brain, delays ensue and enervate. Someone else is here, choking on the premise of future food. You ever become that fancy goal doctor? A missing leg that's now missing. I think you're funny. Lavender Drive, Tricks Rhythm, Mandatory Mask Friday, Thy Donut Seagull, The Point, Rumors of Freedom Undermine the Estrangements, Bridge rhymes with density and it's stinkified, Bridge rhymes with density and it's stinkified destiny, frame waves from yesterday's contaminations. Only the trenches are relaxing. The de-extinct creatures require our absence. Upend is the only real mail I can get right now. So long as we build critique into our success, blue is alive. You're on the manifest, chow time. Chow time, my cousin has a drone glibber than this. As expedition facilitators go, the dinosaur's sole function is to manipulate your character. Times are dangerous. You might wake up into ongoing danger and be surrounded by people who've been going through that longer than you've had a thought. Hey, myself, may your imitations never recede as you keep trying to make yourself possible. Okay. How about that sitting by the Brooklyn Bridge? So I'm gonna read these 3 poems by Lorenzo Thomas, and I'm gonna see if I have time to read 3 poems by Lorenzo Thomas. Lorenzo Thomas was born in Panama, and he was raised in the Bronx and Queens, and was part of the Black arts movement, in particular, part of the Umbra workshop in the 1960s. He enlisted in the Navy because he knew he was gonna get drafted during the American War in Vietnam. And when he got out, he eventually went down to Texas, where he spent much of the rest of his life, though often visiting New York. He's a very wise and witty human being. This is a piece called Survivors, which I would think was written either while he was still in the Navy or just after he got out. So it's early 1970s, and from a section of this collected called Slum Days After the War. Survivors. You didn't use to comfort none but the mourning. Things is changing. Now everyone need consolation, and veterans of fiendish wars wear the poppy in their arms. They seize their pension from your cars. Their disability repay a gluttonous trust. The one blue window in your room replays your inhumanities with mad canister laughter. Despite ampule warnings, college kids blowing themselves up with crystal reefer. Oh my Lord, oh my Lord. People, let's make a deal. America would be beautiful if you're willing to trade and go speaking proverbs like peasants everywhere. Junkies, beautiful, respected in all other lands. As men of peace, someone like God must have had a crush on, or something. And this poem, I think this poem's gonna be a little hard to read, but I'm gonna give it a try. This is called Dirge for Amadou Diallo, written in 2000 after the murder of a young man named Amadou Diallo. If you don't know about that story, he was a student. He had come to the United States from West Africa, from Guinea, and he was out one night, and 4 policemen murdered him for no good reason at all. Thought his wallet was a gun, or just shot at him. Dirge for Amadou Diallo. It is hard to have your son die in a distant land. If they said he was a soldier, we would pray the way we always pray, that his would be the final sacrifice, and we would understand. Questions will fill that churning emptiness, shaped like a boy, grown beautifully into a man. There'll be no answers. Still, we'll understand. If he was a true believer or a missionary, apostle or a revolutionary, ardent altruist or visionary, in these mean times, maybe instead a hard and nerveless man, a mercenary, then we would dread his noble loss or petty glory, and we would understand. It is hard to have your son die in a distant land. If accident or heart attack, we could blame chance or curse our earthbound ignorance, vow to concoct new mythologies that wouldn't forge us such raw cruelties, marching our hope in coffles toward the grave. We'd understand if someone said he was this son, a prodigal, the kind of man who desperately needs the vice of suffering and hurt and desolation, some eccentricity to hold him firm, to help him shape his heart into an instrument of praise. The kind of man who dares to summon whirlwinds to winnow wisdom from sophistication. We would wail and hold our heads, astonished by the wastefulness of fate, this repetitious wastefulness of fate, and understand. But now they tell me of a peaceful man, a mother's son, a father's pride, seeking the study in the learned halls of a distant, splendid, powerful, affluent land. A young man murdered at the hand of men sworn to uphold the law, not thugs or bandits. And there's no justice, there's no recompense. Oh no, in spite of all our history of terror in the world, uncountable eons of sorrow of the world, oh no, we do not understand. It is hard to have your son die in a distant land, and harder still when we can't understand. And I'll just read this one more poem. This is written in 2002, Autumn Equinox 2002, it's dated. So in the run-up, in the early stages of the War on Terror, ailerons and elevators. The backwards C, the wise don't say a word. 3 dreams, 1 foolish and 2 meaningless, are haunting me, disturbing me. One says, a golden road was plotted out for you, in dreams, of course, but that's not where you are when you awaken. The danger is seeing the world as 2 extremes, the afternoon of rushing home to see her balanced against turning the corner, hoping that her car will not be there. Daydreams are better. Nice, watching the planes come in on the last day of summer, airport peaceful. Passengers are few, on flights answering demand more than desire. Their stress has been at home or will come later. They deplane calmly. When the Wright boys and their friend Paul Laurence Dunbar finished high school in 1890, their neighbors knew that they'd go high up in this world. Paul is an elevator boy in downtown Dayton, Orville and Wilbur going swimming in thin air. Unfortunately, they'd never heard of Richard Gallup, David, or Romare Bearden either. Such are the baffling deficits that time imposes. They never dreamed someone would use an airplane to drop bombs made of oil field dynamite and set Greenwood aflame. Andrew Smitherman fleeing in 1921 from Tulsa to New York to the edge of America. What is this shadow cast across the coming season? In the still watches of the Negro night, fear rising like mist off a bayou, the danger in the world is seeing it as two extremes. Is this full moon so indiscriminate that even liars prosper if they have launched their web with the new moon? The autumn equinox, a harvest of deceit, leaves the ground rugged. The harvest done, the fields outside the city, flat and sere. A single egret stands in the parking lot at the post office, poised and confused. The world automatically recoils into itself. Are you ready for football? For serious business? Are you ready for war? People throughout all history have lived in ashen cities or died in them. Marcel Duchamp was joking, wasn't he? As always, when he said dust-covered glass might offer auguries of our predicament. Oh, mirror, mirror, how have my people been distracted so they don't care any longer who they are? How so misled that they believe punishment does not apply to crimes committed in their name? Must war morph from Nintendo game to spectacle to get attention? If all are suspect, could my own duplicities be causing this? The way we're all responsible for air pollution? If you keep breathing, if you believe in magic, yes, and that same magic, yes, could stop the rush to madness too. There are still scraps of summer laughter on the street. There's still some music from 2 backyards away. The Funkadelics and Jay-Z resist denial, but here's the truth. You have the right to keep your mouth shut. Trust me. Across the room, a person looking like a crazy version of somebody you once knew might be our savior, one who can draw fire out of ashes, at least a lover, maybe, the one to take you up a little higher or let you down easy. But don't look this way. It isn't me. Thank you. Sorry that might have taken a couple extra minutes, but I wanted to read those poems. So now I'm introducing Mónica, who will anchor the reading. Mónica is the author of 6 books of poetry, of which the most recent is Repetition 19, published by Nightboat Books in the spring of 2020. Others include The Happy End All Welcome, a riff on Kafka's America, as well as Public Domain. Born and raised in Mexico City, she has lived in New York City since mid-90s and has published several books in Spanish, including Taller de Taquimecanografía, written jointly with the eponymous women's collective she formed with Gabriela, also with Laureana Toledo and the late Aura Estrada. She teaches poetry at Brooklyn College and in the Bard MFA program. And the anthology Women in Concrete Poetry 1959 to 1979, she co-edited with Alex Balgiu, who's just out from Primary Information. As was mentioned, she's a Leo. The horoscope that I found said something like, something you were targeting won't be coming through. Thank heavens you had a backup plan in place so you won't be left at loose ends. You will not drift. You will be on the Rue de Rivoli with the spirits of beauty, art, and progress, pertinent and mobile, and musical and strange. The sun will come out. Please welcome Mónica de la Torre.
Thank you so much, Anselm. And thank you all for still being here. I have a quick question. Will this end at 3? Will we just be cut off at 3?
No, we can go a couple minutes over.
Okay, a couple minutes only. Yeah, just, I mean, I don't, yeah. Yeah, I'll do my best. I'm just gonna, since I already read my political poem by another person with Eleni, I'm just gonna read I was in between Vallejo and Etel Adnan. There's a beautiful poem here, very short, I will begin with. In Time, which has got the Griffin Prize, it's a beautiful book published last year, I believe. Let's not bother to fear those who insult our insubordination. The conquered will always have the last word. I live in an invisible that has neither bathroom nor entryway. The invisible has no owner. The dream never has walls and it's never cold there. And my shadows stretch over my body as it sleeps, and the sky stops being blue and the light waits. So that is that poem by Etel. Now I'm going to share my screen as well. Because the work I want to share with you today is a response to these works by Felix Gonzalez Torres. And I just want to make sure that you all can see the relevant. Can you see this? Can you all see it? Yeah? And you're not seeing the margins or anything, you're just seeing the piece? Okay.
We see the top bar, but no other margin.
Great. Okay. So these works are photostats by Felix Gonzalez Torres. He did them in the 90s, and they are about to be published. I think this book is about to come out. It's called Photostats, Felix Gonzalez Torres. Siglo Books is publishing it, and I was commissioned a response to this work. So I'm going to read you some of these pieces. Basically, what I did was write. Well, I explain what I say, what I did in this brief introduction. The piece is called "To Be an Infiltrator," and it actually has an epigraph by Alice Notley, which I'll read. Time, the substantial we, epical and great as only we can see it, are particular. No one wants to be defined by history's contingencies, by catastrophe, but attempting to ignore how they shape us would be as ludicrous as trying to stop the clock. What if instead we broke down the chain of events leading to them, undoing their fatal sequence, and leaving their parts open for reassembly? Is this what's at stake in Gonzalez Torres's photostat works? Here, they appear as coded messages awaiting decipherment, but they're equally apt on gallery walls as reminders that no matter how open or walled off any space may be, it escapes neither interconnectedness nor time's inexorable march. Unlike the stars, we do not write luminously on a dark field, yet Gonzalez Torres's inscriptions do act as constellations, as celestial alphabet. Events worth remembering, the count of years, they are light beams orienting us as we go on forgetting. Each cluster of dates and references displays its own oblique associative logic. The gaps between elements in each of the clusters are openings inviting us to fill in the blanks by bringing in our own associations and personal histories. What emerges are oddly rhyming shards, resonant shards that seem to prove the existence of a universe in which the future's already happened. Okay. This is the beginning. It's not the beginning of the piece, but it's the beginning of where I'm reading. There's a video of Felix Gonzalez Torres made in 1979, the year he arrived in the US and portable music was born. Shirtless, he speaks to the camera in Spanish while writing on a blackboard. He remembers being put on a plane to Spain and his sister as a child, remembers priests and not remembering his mother. He goes on half remembering an upsetting story in which memories and stories are traps tangling him up. Always the same old memories and stories tangling him up. He points to the blackboard. See, that's you in the middle of that jumble, all tangled up. In Bowers versus Hardwick, 1986, the Supreme Court upholds Georgia's sodomy laws criminalizing oral and anal sex between consenting adults. A public drinking citation outside Hardwick's workplace, a gay bar in Atlanta, had turned into an arrest warrant allowing a police officer to walk into the defendant's home and discover him engaging in oral sex with his male partner. Justice Blackmun's dissenting opinion, one of two, is written by openly gay clerk Pamela S. Carlin. Testifying during Trump's impeachment trial in 2019, she would quip, "The president can name his son Barron, but he can't make him a baron." At a televised press conference in 1977, anti-gay crusader, once beauty queen Anita Bryant, praised that the man who just put a pie in her face be delivered from his deviant style. "We can't stand the garbage you spout," he shouts back. The FDA licenses the first blood test for AIDS in 1985. Rock Hudson, the first celebrity to publicize his diagnosis, dies of AIDS-related illness that year. A 1949 screen test had catapulted him into stardom. The quote, "For 30 days and nights, we took a steady beating. More than half my platoon were killed. I never expected to come out alive." In 1952, Fulgencio Batista stages a military coup in Cuba. Recklessly corrupt, he is backed by the Eisenhower administration, while the public's discontent, which will eventually lead Fidel Castro to overthrow him, keeps mounting. American mobster Meyer Lansky, AKA the mob's accountant, has full control of Cuba's gambling casinos then. Batista dies in 1973, and so does Bruce Lee. Lee's poem, The Silent Flute, was the basis of a screenplay for an eponymous film. An excerpt reads, "Now I see that I will never find the light unless, like the candle, I am my own fuel, consuming myself." Patient zero, originally O for out of California, contracted what was considered a rare cancer in 1981. I write these words during the coronavirus pandemic. The irony of stating this isn't lost on me. Only the readers of an inconceivable future would need to be reminded that the world as we'd known it came to a halt in 2020. In various classical texts, pandemos, the common to all people, serves as Eros and Aphrodite's surname and is synonymous with sensual love. It is only just Gonzalez Torres' abiding demand that we partake of a radical poesis at the intersection of love and the public. In a 1970s Dick Tracy-style commercial, an orange Tic Tacs flavor fizzes in a Roomba on the detective's tongue. When the American market begins calorie counting later on, cunning replaces wit. Tic Tacs, which helped consumers get a kick out of life, now become the 1.5 calorie breath mint. In a Monty Python 1972 sketch, spam, ubiquitous in the UK during wartime, is undesirable no matter how it's spun. Unsolicited advertising email is named after the sketch. The first deliberate spam for a network's users to read is posted in 1994. Global alert for all. Jesus is coming soon. Attorney General William Barr sends 2,000 military troops to quell riots following the 1992 acquittal of the LAPD officers who battered Rodney King. We're not going to tolerate any of this stuff out in the streets. During the 1965 Watts riots, 14,000 troops had descended on Los Angeles. The Insurrection Act, conceived as protection against hostile incursions of the Indians, is invoked again in 2020. Trump summons the National Guard to control protests against George Floyd's murder. Immediately after, Attorney General Barr accompanies him to St. John's Church for the photo op. Heard again throughout American streets, no justice, no peace. The 1988 action thriller, The Deadpool, is the final installment of the Dirty Harry series, in which Clint Eastwood, a pro-gun self-declared libertarian, plays a maverick inspector. "You forgot your fortune cookie. It says you're shit out of luck," he snaps as he pulls out a Smith & Wesson Model 29 to shoot a robber at a Chinese restaurant. During the American Civil War, Smith & Wesson became the most popular revolvers among soldiers of both sides, using them for self-defense. During the 2012 Republican National Convention, Eastwood improvised a cringeworthy pro-Romney speech while speaking to an empty chair. In defiance of the Civil Rights Act, Alabama's electors refused to pledge votes to Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964, and the state's presidential election ballot has no Democratic contender. In the 1950s, when gentrification causes artists and poets to move eastward from Greenwich Village, the area once known as Little Germany, that later became home to Eastern European immigrants, is rebranded as the East Village. On 3rd Avenue and 14th Street, where the 5-napkin burger chain now thrives, there once stood in the mid-1980s the 24-hour coffee shop Disco Donuts. Above it was the lesbian bar Carmelita's Reception House. William James. Many things come to be thought by us as past, not because of any intrinsic quality of their own, but rather because they are associated with other things which for us signify pastness. What is the original of our experience of pastness, from whence we get the meaning of the term? Car, market, crash, smash, hit, bang, sudden grape drop, depression, catastrophe, collision, Black Monday, speculative dot-com bubble, bankruptcy chapter, steep revenue, cling clang, loss, economic stars, recession, collide, crisis, crack, epidemic, break dance, financial thump thump, panic boom, box, bounce back, behavior, immunity, herd cats. So I was going to read one more poem, but it might just, it's a shorter new poem. I can end now or just go for it. I can't hear. Okay, I'm just going to go for it. Yes? Okay. This piece is called August, and this is the last piece. We leave the city on and off and off and on. The plants seem hardier for it, as if they too need space, or the compulsoriness of our interrupted company sucks the air out of the room, pollutes their habitat, as if it too senses the pulsations of our reluctance. 5 more days pass. In that corner of the sky, Orion is possibly the constellation whose pinholes I point out to Jane. Shadow prances as we walk over to a darker area of the field to catch the shooting stars. The sadness of the turn the poem took takes us by surprise. We find ourselves welling up. We find ourselves verbing. We lose our grip. Once, to love the city, you had to hate it every now and then. Disappointment preordained by expectations of returns. There's intermittent eroticism, the erotics of intermittence, and dead ends. Andy said he wasn't coming back. Aki and Makiko headed back east. Transplants don't take forever. Our neighbors leave for the suburbs. Our neighbors move upstate. Even Angela, East Village born and bred, thinks she wants out. The skyline discontinues itself at night. More lights are out, but sidewalk furniture doesn't go unwanted. We rarely visited the joint down the street, menu board blank, awning still there. At the waterfront park, a man in disbelief goes on about another man, a Staten Islander, who's not once set foot in Central Park. The wax museum across the river is open. Nearby, Minnie takes a breather, mouse mask dangles from her neck, face mask over sense organs. A truck driver keeps his cool while stuck in traffic on 42nd, plays a Peruvian flute between lights. We pass the American Dream, a sports complex in Jersey, after making it another river over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Monica. Those were incredible to hear. And thank you, Anselm and Monica, for gathering all of these incredible poets today, for the extra cosmic content or context for everyone. And of course, for everything that you both have done for the Rail in the last 20 years. Thank you, Eleni, Christopher, Gabriela, Uche, and Asiya for sharing such beautiful and wise poems. And thank you, Uche, for being here and reading for us on your birthday. And thank you to everyone who came out today. Please join us again tomorrow at 1 p.m. for the 7th installation of Common Ground. In partnership with Theater of War Productions, we will be joined by Gwen Carr and Valerie Bell for a conversation on their tireless work as mothers of the movement to end police violence. And please join us again next week on Wednesday for another radical poetry reading curated by Alma Birch and Bennett Bergman. You now should all have the ability to activate your microphones and say goodbye as you leave.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Anselm. Thanks, Monica. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Happy birthday, Uche.
Happy birthday, Uche.
Thank you. Lots of love.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, we'll let you see a little bit again back to the room and see where they're at, and we'll take you to that room.
Good job, everybody.
Yeah.
Take it easy. Have a great day, Uche.
Yeah, thanks. And you too.
Thank you. Thanks, Uche.
Hey, Vincent.
Ooh. Thank you.
All right. Adios.
Yes.
Bye. Thank you all.
Thank you.